Hey everyone! If you enjoyed this video, the full version is available on Patreon. I'll be uploading all my content there going forward.
Chapter 1. For Humanity, for the Emperor. A captain, transformed into a half-human, half-machine through the technology of the Mechanics, roared hysterically. His prosthetic arm slammed onto the control panel in front of him, and he looked at the power manager and the mechanical priest in charge of maintaining the power room, his eyes bloodshot. I'll put all the energy into the propulsion system. Even if I die, I'll take them down with me. This warship is finished. The void shield reactor is overloaded, and multiple explosions have occurred on the hull. A few more explosions and it will be completely destroyed. After giving the order, the captain revealed a fanatical smile and roared once again the oath he had sworn countless times. For humanity, for the Emperor, onward, onward. At the captain's command, the warship, now unprotected by the void shield, suddenly erupted with intense light from its stern, increasing its speed as it charged toward the flesh-covered chaos ship, attempting to perish together with it. The universe and fate have one thing in common: they are both cold, ruthless, and cruel. Unfortunately, the courage of the captain and the entire crew was not rewarded by fate. Lady Luck did not even glance at this courageous and self-sacrificing man. As the chaotic ship unleashed a dazzling beam of light, the massive warship was pierced straight through. The plasma reactor, which was at its pressure limit, was hit, triggering an explosion, with flames shooting out of the pipes. The colossal warship, stretching 5 kilometers in length, was engulfed in flames and shattered into pieces in space. All 10,000 plus human crew members on board perished, not a single one survived. For humanity and the Emperor. Amidst the sea of fire, the captain shouted his vow with all his might for the last time. The destruction of warships is insignificant in the grand and sweeping battlefield of space. On the vast battlefield of space, thousands of warships are engaged in combat. Countless light spears, plasma beams, container-sized torpedoes, and high-yield nuclear missiles have turned space into a deadly forbidden zone. The war has reached its most desperate moment. The Imperial fleet launched repeated counterattacks, attempting to regain orbital control of Macrage in order to send support to the ground. They must deliver support before the ground forces are completely routed, or humanity's doom will be sealed. The end day will surely come. Humanity, this tenacious race, will thus face destruction. The surface of Macurag is engulfed in war. Cities across the country suffered unimaginable barrage of fire. The near-Earth orbit was captured, the artillery positions were lost, and the tank formations were completely destroyed. The fighter jets are still struggling to hold on, trying to prevent the demon vehicles from seizing the last bit of air superiority. Powerful legionary warriors were drawn to guard the sanctuary. Only the Macurag Guard continues to fight desperately to defend the city and its civilians. The civilians huddled trembling behind the defensive lines built by the wounded Imperial Guard soldiers. All eligible men and women were drafted to the battlefield. Women and children awaited the end of the world in despair, silently praying that the Emperor would save them and that he would take their souls with him after his death, so that they would not suffer endless torment in the terrible warp and ultimately become horrible monsters. Within the Ultramarine Sanctuary, the most brutal war was also raging. This place will determine the fate of this planet, and even the entire galaxy. Stop them! The Chaos Warrior, clad in black armor that reeked of blood, had a cruel and malicious look in his eyes. He swung his chainsaw sword, which had long since stopped spinning, and casually killed all the ordinary soldiers who tried to provide support. The ordinary soldiers were cut in two like weeds being harvested by a sharp scythe, their shattered bodies lay sprawled on the ground, their blood staining the sanctuary's surface. For humanity, for the Emperor. The brutality and bloodshed did not frighten the soldiers behind them. Shouting the only slogans that gave them courage, they charged forward, laser guns in hand, trying to stop these shameful traitors from desecrating this sacred building. The Chaos Warrior did not stop. He wielded his chainsaw sword, shattered limbs flying about, his face beneath his helmet flushed with excitement at the carnage. Blood sacrifice to the blood god. After shouting the name of his allegiance to the evil god, he pounced on the ordinary soldiers, reaping their lives without restraint. Soldiers fought bravely, one after another, their purpose being to buy time for humanity to survive under the Emperor's watchful eye. The battle within the sanctuary was fierce and desperate. The remaining Ultramarines, along with the Dark Templars, the Death Army, and the Battle Sisters, have been driven to the brink of despair. Saint Celestine's white wings were broken, and one of her hands was severed. The armor was shattered, and horrific wounds flowed with sweet-smelling blood. Those fighting nun sisters were either disintegrated under the intense attacks of plasma cannons and explosive bombs, or torn apart by chaos warriors and demons. Give me strength, grant me victory, and I will serve you, walking in your name throughout the world. Blood streamed from one of Celestine's eyes, yet she continued to silently recite the Emperor's name. Chaos warriors and demons charged in droves, but Celestine, holding the holy sword, remained unwavering. For the Emperor, for humanity. With her angry shout, a magnificent golden light erupted, a blessing from the Emperor. Countless demons were sent flying by the golden light she unleashed. But soon, even more demons and chaos warriors rushed up. On the chaotic battlefield, Calgar, the chapter commander of the Ultramarines, roared. His azure power armor stood out starkly in the chaotic battlefield, making him a prime target for attacks. His explosives were exhausted, his sword was broken, and only one power gauntlet remained usable. Boom! An Ultramariner was blasted to pieces by a Chaos Warrior's molten cannon right in front of him. The remaining limbs emitted a charred, foul-smelling heat. Traitor! Calga was horrified by his brother's death, roaring like an enraged lion. Watching his comrades fall one by one, he went berserk, swinging his power boxing gloves as he charged forward. After tearing a Chaos Warrior apart, he turned to look at the high platform. Beside the stationary field, the mechanical priest call and those damned aliens were still operating. So it really won't work. Despair welled up in Calgar's heart. They could not resurrect the father of Genesis, the great Primarch. Is it all coming to an end? Is this the end of the mission? 10,000 years after the first ruler of the Empire, the Emperor, sat on the Golden Throne, Abaddon, the second War Master of the Chaos Four, launched the 13th Crusade. With the help of Blackrock Fortress, he successfully destroyed the Cardia Fortress that was containing the Eye of Terror, allowing the chaotic power of the Great Rift to sweep across the entire galaxy. The age of galactic decay has arrived, the curse has torn the entire galaxy apart. Countless monsters surged from the cracks, leaving only death and destruction in their wake. The nightmares of bygone dark nights reappear in various worlds, bringing endless slaughter and cruel destruction. The power to destroy the world has gathered on an unprecedented scale in history. There is no safe place where one can escape this calamity. Countless worlds fell, and countless mortals perished in agony and torment under the ravages and tortures of demons and the offspring of chaos. Humanity faces its greatest crisis yet. If it fails again, eternal darkness will shroud the entire galaxy. A grand, decisive battle is about to begin, a battle between good and evil, chaos and order. The war will tear apart the stars and destroy everything that people know and are familiar with. The Shinicists with prophetic abilities have already shown despair. This dark and cruel galaxy has no future for humanity. This world will fall into an abyss of despair, and humanity will become a plaything for evil gods to ravage at will. With a deafening roar that shook the earth, the sanctuary was struck violently once again. The second wave of chaos drop pods, wreathed in flames, crashed into the sanctuary. With a strange sound, the drop pod opened, and hundreds of rogue space marines poured out and joined the battle. They were used as a trump card by the commander of the Chaos faction. It was launched precisely into the battlefield in a single strike, completely shattering the defenses of the Loyalists. Despair completely enveloped all the soldiers. For humanity, for the Emperor. They let out their final, desperate battle cry, facing death with composure, and vowing to take away as many of the traitors who besieged the sanctuary as possible. Darkness has completely enveloped humanity, the final horn of humanity is about to sound, and the end of everything is imminent. As the final, life-or-death battle between the two sides was about to begin. With a resounding chime, a pure and clear musical note illuminated the night. The automatic mechanism emitted a melodious sound while its dome opened up like the petals of some giant carnivorous flower. A tall, imposing figure appeared before the crowd. After slumbering for 10,000 years, Glimmer, humanity's last ray of salvation, the Empire's last hope, the Emperor's 13th son, the Primarch of the Genesis representing loyalty, hope, and benevolence, opened his eyes before the two sides, who were on the verge of exchanging blows. He looked at everything before him, his eyes revealing confusion and helplessness. Wasn't he playing video games? How did I end up here when I opened my eyes? A flood of memories surged forth, making him understand everything in an instant. A million grass mud horses galloped through my mind. Holy crap! Holy crap! Holy crap! How could such a ridiculous thing happen? Chapter 2. Having fully absorbed the physical memories, Glimmer could only express his inner thoughts with 3 holy crap, s. In a short moment, he understood the whole story. He was transported to a nightmarish place, the human empire in the Warhammer universe. This universe is a world of extreme chaos, where the only requirement is survival. To ensure the survival of one's race by any means necessary, survival itself is victory. Humanity has struggled in space for 40,000 years, experiencing the Golden Age, the Age of Rebellion, the Age of the Long Night, the Age of the Great Crusade, the Horus Rebellion at the end of the Great Crusade, and finally the Age of the Human Empire, which lasted for 10,000 years. And now is the most dangerous moment for the Human Empire. The Empire's main enemy is Abaddon, the warlord supported by 4 evil gods. He was responsible for leading the forces of chaos to continuously invade the real universe, paving the way for the ultimate destruction of the world by the 4 evil gods. These 4 evil gods are truly terrifying, they exist purely as concepts, and there's no way to win against them. During the Empire's 10,000 years of existence, Abaddon launched 12 expeditions, clearing away most of the black stone seal nodes that restricted the evil gods from entering the real universe. With his 13th expedition, the most important fortress, the Cardia Fortress, the most crucial link in the sealed node, was also completely destroyed. The out-of-control Eye of Fear has unleashed chaotic power upon the real world, and the minions of the evil god are pouring in madly, sweeping across planets everywhere. A massive cursed scar cleaved the human empire in 2, and demons and traitors appeared on countless planets. The empire is now a bleeding giant. If things aren't handled properly, humanity will soon be doomed. But the enemy's Grandpa Lan faces in this point in time are truly terrifying, it's a dead end for him. Thinking about this, Glimmer felt a bit of a headache. It's not that we weren't capable enough, the enemy was just too strong, and we couldn't hold them off. Those rebellious primarches were already keeping him busy enough that he couldn't possibly manage everything at once. What's worse, those damned evil gods are also eyeing this from behind the scenes. If things go wrong, we'll be finished. The sound of the serrated chain activating brought Glimmer back to his senses as he looked at the Chaos Warrior and the demon before him. Let's deal with the immediate enemy first, and then figure out what to do next. Glimmer casually drew the holy sword from the side, and scorching flames instantly covered the blade. This was the Emperor's personal sword, which was casually taken by the mechanical sage, Kal, who was wearing resurrection armor. As Glimmer gripped the hilt, the imperial sword revived, golden flames spreading and illuminating the golden battlefield. Having merged the souls of both, Glimmer felt a greater ease in controlling this demigod body, filled with boundless power. Combat skills automatically came to mind the moment he picked up the sword, giving him an instinctive ability to freely wield this body possessing surging power. Gilliman's resurgence plunged both sides into an eerie silence. The Empire's loyalists, humanity's last guardians, all gazed at him with ecstatic eyes. Guilliman's return was like a faint ray of hope rising from endless darkness. In the darkness and despair of the apocalypse, a faint glimmer of redemption emerged. The entire hall fell silent, compared to the deafening roar of war outside that shook the earth. This place feels extremely eerie. The Primarch's inherently powerful aura instilled fear in both demons and fallen warriors, maintaining a rare silence. Even though they had been asleep for 10,000 years, the other party's identity still filled them with immense fear. Until a scream shattered everything. Acorn Berserker covered in bone spurs, wielding a blood-red battle axe, stepped forward from the crowd. Under the shocked gaze of his comrades, the fallen warrior who served the blood god leaped into the air and charged straight at the Primarch, attempting to collect the Primarch's soul for his master. Gilliman moved slightly. Only the Death Clan followers present, the Eldar warriors renowned for their speed, clearly saw this thunderous attack. The flaming sword left a trail of afterimages in mid-air. The berserker was cleaved in two at the waist, and the two parts, propelled by immense force, flew to the ground in the distance with a thunderous roar. The sound of the Chaos Warrior's corpse hitting the ground shattered the spell of silence. Death cannot frighten the minions of these chaotic evil gods. Accompanied by earth-shattering roars filled with hatred, countless demons and Chaos Warriors charged fearlessly toward Gilliman. They intend to completely destroy this awakened Primarch. The surviving Ultramarines, Dark Templars, and Space Marines from other chapters roared and charged forward, and the two sides clashed once again. Chainsaw swords, powered weapons, slashed through armor and flesh. The hatred between the two sides was so intense that the war would only end when one side fell completely. For humanity, for the Emperor, for my father. Calgar roared, his power gauntlet plunging into the throat of a traitor, shredding his armor and throat, letting the foul blood splatter all over himself. With Gilliman's resurrection, they regained their power to fight these enemies. Celestine brandished her sword with her only remaining hand, silently reciting a prayer. Her fighting spirit was ignited by Gilliman's return, and she was fearless. The flame of faith was rekindled within her. Let her become the Emperor's messenger, reaping the rewards from those traitorous Space Marines. The Grand Marshal of the Black Templar chapter and his surviving comrades also launched a charge, their battle cries emanating from their vocal cords, leaving a trail of corpses wherever the Templar swords fell. With Gilliman joining the battle, the Loyalists quickly gained the upper hand. The power of the Primarch is unstoppable, anyone who tries to hinder him will suffer his terrible wrath. The first to perish were the sorcerers who worshipped the fallen god. It was their power that shook the foundations of the sanctuary. This gave these demons the opportunity to invade the sanctuary. Their proud psychic powers were as fragile as paper before Gilliman. Gilliman could easily snap their necks and turn their bodies to pieces with a barrage of armor-piercing bullets. Next came the fallen Space Marines, once humanity's protectors, now enemies of humankind. Gilliman showed them no mercy. Like a god, he charged straight at them amidst their fierce artillery fire, wielding his burning holy sword. The primitives' reaction speed and power far exceed ordinary people's imagination. The superhuman senses of the fallen Space Marines paled in comparison to Gilliman's. Like a tiger, he charged into the sheep, and a frenzied slaughter ensued. With the first strike, a fallen Space Marine was sliced in two. His Terminator armor was as flimsy as paper, failing to stop Gilliman for even a second. With the second strike, a demon was cleaved in two, its cursed blood gushing forth. The Emperor's sword burned its soul to ashes, ensuring it would never return to the warp. Then came the third and fourth sword strikes, so fast that only afterimages could be seen. Gilliman's speed was like lightning, and his arrival tilted the tide of battle in favor of the loyal defenders. All the warriors roared, their faces beaming with excitement. They gathered around Gilliman, forming an invincible spearhead that swept away all enemies. The once powerful demons and fallen warriors were swiftly harvested like weeds before Gilliman. Gilliman's rage erupted like a suppressed volcano, his eyes burning with fury, and he brandished the imperial sword, slaying every enemy he saw. Only after slaying the last demon in the sanctuary did Guilliman stop, calming his rage. Guilliman was trying to sort things out and see if he could re-establish communications between the Macrage forces and retake the planet. Suddenly, a crisp sound rang in his mind. Target qualified, Dominator template, database and auxiliary wizard are enabled, please check promptly. The host can ask questions, and the assistant spirit will try its best to answer them. The sound startled Guilliman. Is this his cheat code to time travel? It seems there's still a chance to turn things around. It would be best to do a 10 pull and instantly become a mythical Ronaldo in 3 days. At that time, we'll be able to punch the 4 chaos gods, kick their ribs, devour the Zerg alive, and roast the green-skinned creatures. It'll be just around the corner. Even the Emperor would have to stand up unsteadily and call out, "Elder brother! What are your abilities?" Guilliman asked without any hesitation. Time travel without a cheat code is like Adam without Eve. It's a recipe for disaster. Understanding the golden finger, or golden touch, is the first step to defying fate. Chapter 3. The database contains a vast amount of human technological knowledge. The host can gain access to the database by completing relevant authentication tasks. The Lord of Domination template can help the host collect beliefs. The more beings who acknowledge the host, the stronger the power boost the host receives. The host can view the data of individuals who acknowledge the host, but cannot view data representing those individuals' acknowledgement of other evil gods. Please proceed with caution. The assistant can answer your questions and assist you with the database knowledge you can access. No in-game store? No 10-pull gacha. Guilliman's heart sank. Without those incredibly powerful abilities, how do you fight those rebellious primarchs? How do I defeat the 4 gods? Is this some kind of cheat code? What's the point of having this kind of support? The Chaos God was practically decked out in full gear when he finally got this cheat code. There's no point in playing anymore. Guilliman just wants to ask someone if the 4 gods' imperial army can surrender and lose half their money. This is a legitimate auxiliary tool, it doesn't have any unnecessary or misleading features. Damn, bro, are you serious? Even clubs know you can't make a living doing business legitimately these days. Don't you, a system professional, know how to be flexible? Guilliman really wanted to express his holy crap. Isn't this practically sending him to his death? Without top-tier cheat codes to assist them, the Chaos faction is strong and well-equipped, while the Empire is plagued by aliens, internal strife, and a bunch of monstrous figures lurking in the shadows. This assistant trusts the host, please work hard. What good is your trust in me? I don't even trust myself. Guilliman was internally ranting and raving. Do you still trust me? Even powerful figures like emperors are being sent to sit on golden toilets, everyone else must be even worse off. This is no joke. People like emperors are simply protagonists in a story. He is powerful, his Shinik energy is so strong that it can extinguish stars. It would take the combined efforts of the 4 gods to defeat him. In terms of strategy, we will crush all the alien forces, utterly defeat all the warlords, and complete the great cause of unification. In terms of ideology, he was a charlatan and later personally carried out a movement to destroy gods. In terms of achievements, he unified humanity, established the Star Torch, and laid the foundation for the Empire's millennia-long existence. He was just one step away from completing the ultimate vision of universal ascension. To be honest, Guilliman had never seen a novel with such an amazing protagonist. This figure, through the combined efforts of the 4 gods and a traitor, ascended the Golden Throne and suffered torment for millennia. Who dares to say they've done a better job than the Emperor? Such a cheat-like ability can't win, at best, it can only delay death, but in the end, one will still die. Adult. Guilliman remained lost in thought until the voice of Saint Celestine awakened him from his mental reverie. Celestine's voice is beautiful, possessing a unique magnetism characteristic of saints. It makes you want to listen to her voice. After a brutal and bloody battle, Celestine's armor was shattered and covered in horrific wounds. Even with her amazing healing abilities, she was still bleeding profusely, a truly shocking sight. Celestine was also one of the key figures in Guilliman's resurrection. It was her suggestion that led the Black Templars and many chapters to protect the Mechanic sage, Call. This allowed the mechanical sage, who possessed the method to resurrect Guilliman, to safely retreat from the fallen and destroyed Cardia fortress and to rally the Space Marines along the way to Macrage. The warriors who gathered along the way ultimately helped the mechanical sage, Call, complete the ritual to resurrect Guilliman. Guilliman looked at Celestine with a questioning gaze. "Thank you, Emperor, for returning the great Primarch and the noble you to our side." Celestine, enduring her injuries, bowed slightly in thanks. Saints are the Emperor's most faithful followers and his messengers on Earth. In the darkness, despair, and bloodshed of the galaxy, they are humanity's brightest beacon of hope, and proof that humanity is still under the protection of emperors. Saints are extremely rare in the human empire. Because of their noble character and unwavering faith, they were blessed by the Emperor and possessed a portion of the Emperor's power. Celestine also had absolute loyalty to the Emperor's biological son. Her voice trembled as she witnessed the resurrection of an imperial prince, which gave her a glimmer of hope for the future of humanity, dispelling her despair. "Father!" Ultramarines Chapter Commander Calgar also came over. His resolute face was filled with barely suppressed excitement as he gazed up at the reborn original body, his eyes already blurred with tears. The Extreme Battle Group has persisted for 10,000 years, and has guarded this place for 10,000 years. Seeing the father of genetics return today brought tears of joy to their eyes. Chapters that use the Genocide refer to the Primarch as father, using this title to express their gratitude for the second chance at life. In Guilliman's presence, Calgar, hailed as an imperial legend, became as bewildered as a recruit. "I am gratified that, after tens of thousands of years, my descendants are still fighting for humanity." With his memories intertwined, Guilliman looked at Calgar, placed a hand on him, and spoke in a fatherly tone. The soul from another world inherited all of Guilliman's memories and powers, allowing him to calmly watch the people gathering around him. The Regent, the mechanical priest, Call, the Black Templar Marshal, the Inquisitor, and others also came over. 10,000 years ago, after the Horus Rebellion ended. Guilliman, who arrived at the scene, was entrusted with an important task by the seriously injured Emperor and became the Regent of the Empire. "It's a pleasure to see you all again." Guilliman swept his gaze across the crowd, his voice low and authoritative. "The Empire needs your guidance, Imperial Son." Celestine stared at the Primarch's face, her voice trembling with barely concealed excitement. As a believer, she felt greatly comforted that his long-cherished wish had been fulfilled once again. The son of a god emperor has been resurrected and returned. The demigods on the battlefield will seize power and lead the empire to overcome the darkness that relentlessly erodes humanity day and night. After 10,000 years of darkness, the human empire finally saw a glimmer of dawn once again. That is why I have returned. Guilliman looked calmly at everyone, his unwavering gaze instilling courage in them and giving them a strange sense of security. "My return will make our enemies tremble, make the people of the empire rejoice, and once again illuminate this dark starry sky with the glory of humanity. All invaders will pay the price for their deeds." Guilliman's words carried weight, inspiring trust. He is the Primarch, and he will fulfill all that he has promised. Host has successfully triggered the authentication mission. Please expel the chaos forces of Macrage. Reward received, database level 1 unlocked. Level 1 access grants access to information on the first-generation dark matter engine, planet-destroying weapons, and much more. It can assist the host in achieving technological innovation, enabling the human empire to once again burst forth with new vitality. Upon hearing the notification from the support sprite, Guillemon focused his attention on the database to check the details of the mission rewards. Level 1 access is enough to unlock a first-generation dark matter engine, a star-destroying weapon. That's pretty good. Build more weapons, blast your way through, and let the aliens and demons appreciate the art of planet destruction. Isn't that the joy of glass making? Chapter 4. Guillemon nodded after the reward was confirmed. This cheat code isn't too bad, it's barely usable. Utilizing dark matter computing technology in conjunction with the prototype space marine technology in the possession of the mechanical sage, Call. He will then be able to create a new generation of warriors to fight against traitors and the forces of chaos. The Empire's existing space marines were indeed rather weak in the face of these chaos forces. Often, victory is won simply by overwhelming the opponent with numbers. The casualties were so severe that it was unbearable to look at. The ability to build such a powerful new army would greatly help him maintain the territory of the human empire. Guillemon had no choice, either he helped the Empire of Man defeat chaos, or he would be captured by chaos and enslaved. Escape? It's best not to dream. The nearest galaxy to the Milky Way is hundreds of thousands of light-years away. How can one escape? Without the star torches and the navigation chart, how can we escape? Even if the escape ship could reach the maximum speed allowed in space, he still couldn't escape. The time required to travel from the Milky Way to other galaxies at the speed of light would be hundreds of thousands of years. If the spaceship broke down along the way, it would mean drifting to death. Escaping through subspace is even more dangerous. The warp is the domain of the evil gods. Without the protection of the Emperor's star torch, the Geller force field would collapse in a few days. Without the Geller force field, the evil god can do whatever he wants with him. One unrealistic aspect of fleeing is that other places are not necessarily safe. There is another race in the Warhammer universe, the Tyranids. This race came from outside the galaxy. This terrifying race, which devours wherever it goes, was chased into the galaxy by other powerful beings. You can imagine what happened. The world outside the Milky Way might be even worse than the Milky Way itself. I fear that escaping would only lead to greater tragedy. He has no choice but to win, or he will die a horrible death. There is no third option. Get out of here, wipe them out. Guillemon strode out, his eyes blazing with terrifying fury, the flames of the Emperor's sword in his hand burning ever brighter. Kalga, Celestine, Amaric, and other survivors rallied and gathered around Guillemon. Booming artillery fire echoed outside the sanctuary as Imperial defenders continued their fierce battle, attempting to drive the Chaos invaders from their homeland. Battles are raging throughout the magnificent hive city of Makurug. Factories, spaceports everywhere was filled with the sounds of fighting. Space marines from all over the Imperium, clad in various suits of armor, clashed with the forces of chaos. The Asgardian army and the Makrag Guard were still firing, using the defenses erected along the streets to shoot at those damned cultists and demons. Beams of laser light ripped through the battlefield, which reeked of acrid odors, scorching the monsters and claiming their lives. But the monsters, cultists, and traitors are so numerous and vast that they are unimaginable. They launched wave after wave of attacks on the lines of Imperial loyalists, causing the defenders to retreat steadily. For the Chaos Gods, for supreme glory, kill. The cultist, covered in bone spurs and transformed into a monstrous figure, brandished his weapons and shouted, encouraging his followers to charge forward and assault the defending lines. The man, his face contorted in a grotesque grimace and covered in malignant tumors, screamed with an unusual elation, for the grace of the Father, for the end of all things. The other traitors also shouted various bizarre and blasphemous slogans. The Imperial defenders are still holding on desperately, maintaining their crumbling front. Behind them lies the last refuge of Makurug, they have nowhere left to retreat. The people huddled in shelters, praying before the Emperor's statue. Please save us. Don't let us get hurt by those evils. Save us. The closer the sounds of gunfire and the frantic shouts of the chaos forces drew, the more terrified they became. Once they fall into the hands of the Chaos faction, even death will no longer be a peaceful rest, but the beginning of another torment. The thought sent shivers down their spines, they were all gripped by fear. The astronaut commander responsible for defending the Makulegar city sanctuary was also plunged into despair. Faced with the overwhelming onslaught of the chaotic army, he could only squeeze the potential out of every unit as much as possible to buy more time for the defense line. More than 100 legions were worn down by this bloody war, and countless astragalus soldiers died on this battlefield. The only hope is that the Imperial fleet can regain control of near-Earth orbit, only in this way can the war be won. Corpses piled up like mountains on the battlefield, crimson blood flowed on the ground, and even the air was filled with a pungent stench. The brutality of war only intensifies the despair. There was not a single chance of victory in sight. The connection between the Earth's surface and outer space has been severed, and no one knows how the space battle is going. Did they win? Or did they flee in defeat? Large, green flies buzzed around the battlefield. Upon seeing a fresh, fallen corpse, they swarm towards it, burrowing into the flesh to lay their eggs. They then inject the corpse with the benevolence of a loving father, along with those strange viruses and bacteria, causing it to rise again and become a plague-ridden zombie. The defenders were losing ground, while the enemy's offensive was growing stronger. The power of the warp god was satisfied, its eerie whispers tempting the soldiers who still wanted to resist, attempting to drag them from the rotting corpse on the golden throne into the sweet garden. Are we finished? Looking at the increasingly dire situation on the battlefield, despair welled up in the commander's heart. How could they possibly win a battle like this? Continuing to fight will only lead to certain death. They had no chance of turning the tide. There was no high-altitude fire support, no tank command, no Titan Knights, and no reserve forces. The Astral Army commander looked up at the sky. Even their air superiority had been completely taken away by the enemy. What chance of victory did they have left? A sense of pessimism spread among all the defenders, and despair appeared on their faces. Many people gripped their weapons tightly, trying their best to calm their fearful bodies. Several veterans made the eagle salute gesture, offering their final prayers. As the demons and traitors launched their renewed offensive, he silently prayed that his soul would return to the throne and be with his fallen comrades. Suddenly, the eerie whispers disappeared. Everyone felt an unnamed power surging within them, driving away their pain, fatigue, and despair, and making their bodies strong again. The ecstatic expressions on the faces of the crazed chaos warriors, demons, and cultists vanished, replaced by terrifying fear. Glimmer emerged from the sanctuary, like a war demigod filled with rage stepping from the realm of gods into reality. The Emperor's sword burned fiercely, and wherever its light touched, the shadows of the warp crumbled and fled in succession. I have returned. Glimmer roared, and began to run, with Celestine and the others following closely behind, charging together towards the army of demons and traitors. They were like sharp spears, piercing directly into the enemy's formation. The moment they made contact, a terrible massacre ensued, with shattered limbs flying everywhere. Counterattack! All troops, listen to my command. Charge! Seeing the saints, the Grand Marshal, and the chapter commander all surrounding a demigod who only appeared in mythology, the battlefield commander realized that the plan of the Mechaniku's grand sage Belisarius Call had succeeded, an emperor's son had been resurrected. Victory is beckoning them, humanity will prosper forever, and the glory of the empire will be immortal. He roared and ordered the entire army to charge. For humanity, for the emperor. For humanity, for the emperor. Upon hearing the order, the soldiers crawled out of their trenches, shouting oaths, and charged towards the already timid and chaotic army. For humanity. For the emperor, a common soldier shouted with all his might. The toxic gunpowder smoke filled his mouth and nose, causing him to cough violently, but without the slightest hesitation, he rushed towards the nearest cultist, weapon in hand, and plunged the bayonet, crafted using single-molecule technology, into the man's body. Pay the price, traitor! Another soldier, climbing out of the trench, fired his laser gun at the enemies he saw, venting his rage. The situation in Makurag reversed instantly. The Chaos forces continued to lose territory they had occupied and were routed by the counter-attacking humans. Roar! With a roar, realizing the defeat of the Chaos army, the cultist used the lives of his followers to summon a great demon engulfed in flames. The great demon was enormous and strong, covered in metallic bone spikes, making it look extremely terrifying. Its mere aura was enough to make many people tremble with fear. The believer was immediately drained of his life force and then spontaneously combusted, turning into ashes. The Primarch. The great demon entered the real world from the warp through a sacrifice and immediately sensed Guilliman's presence. His fiery eyes locked onto the primals fighting on the battlefield in an instant. The Primarch's skull would be the best gift for the blood god. It revealed a ferocious smile, let out another world-shaking roar, and charged straight at him. Chapter 5. With the assistance of Saint Celestine, Ultramarines Chapter Master Calgar, Dark Templar Marshal Amaric, Inquisitor Grafax, and many other Imperial heroes, as well as numerous ordinary soldiers loyal to the Imperial family. Guilliman easily suppressed the invading Chaos army, wielding the Imperial sword and ruthlessly reaping any enemy within his sight. Whether it was plague zombies, dread monsters, or unicorn demons, they were all harvested at will, like weeds. Corpses lay scattered and piled up. Having merged with a completely new soul, the Primarch's power was not weakened at all, on the contrary, it became even stronger. Guilliman's resurgence thrilled countless loyalists of the Empire. The Primarch's godlike form inspired courage and strength within them, enabling them to face the terrifying chaotic entities without fear. Guilliman's appearance greatly boosted the morale of the Empire, and Archizage of the Mechanics also joined the battle, reciting the Mecha God's Ode and sniping at the Chaos warriors who tried to surround him. The powerful weapons embedded in his spine, powered by an energy core in his chest, unleashed countless terrifying beams of light, annihilating the chaotic army that attempted to stop him. The Chaos army suffered repeated defeats, and the entry of the Primarchs into the battlefield caused the scales of victory to tip ever higher in favor of humanity. Wherever Guilliman's gaze fell, demons and fallen warriors trembled in fear. The flaming holy sword in his hand became a symbol of the battlefield. Wherever it went, enemies were utterly crushed. Guilliman moved with unparalleled ease, his imperial sword flashing in his hand, and no enemy dared to confront him. His progress was slightly slowed by the appearance of a chaotic demon. The demon was enormous, with an ape-like face and wide horns. Power armor, forged 10,000 years ago, covered the demon's strong, bone-spiky body, and he held a chainsaw sword burning with blood-red flames. Its bright red skin tensed with each swing of its hand, and its blood-red wings were covered with strange patterns. The demon emanated a powerful rage that resonated in the hearts of those on the battlefield, fueling their anger and agitation. The warriors who tried to stop him from reaching the Primarch were all killed. Celestine and the others tried to intervene, but Guilliman stopped them, determined to kill the demon himself. I never expected to see another Primarch on the battlefield. The demon's tawny eyes were filled with mockery as he stared at Guilliman. Unfortunately, the Primarch's era has passed, the human empire will perish, and what can the son of the corpse emperor do? You cannot stop the inevitable, this universe belongs to the Chaos gods. Guilliman frowned. He recognized the symbolic markings on the remaining power armor on the other person, the World Eater's chapter. A warband that once served the Empire but ultimately joined the ranks of traitors. The Devourers, due to their genetic fathers, generally chose the side of the blood god Gurn. The demon before them had clearly gained the favor of the blood god and had ascended to demonhood. Looking at the traitor from 10,000 years ago, Guilliman, wielding the Emperor's sword, retorted without hesitation, "Traitor, we didn't beat you enough 10,000 years ago. You still dared to escape from that doghouse of the warp." The soul within Guilliman's body was merely a fusion, it still retained its past memories. He still felt immense rage towards these damned traitors, wishing he could slaughter them all. At the end of the Great Crusade, the human empire had stabilized, awaiting only the success of the Emperor's final great project, the web. Once completed, humanity would embark on a bright and glorious path, becoming the most superior race in the universe. If it weren't for the betrayal of Horus and the other Primarchs, humanity wouldn't be in its current dark state. Humanity has long since embarked on the path of spiritual ascension and collective sublimation, following the Emperor's vision. All that was beautiful vanished with the betrayal of Horus and several others. The cancer of the warp was thus deeply rooted within the human empire. After the Emperor ascended the Golden Throne, humanity struggled for 10,000 years in the darkness of the galaxy. Every day that they were able to survive was bought with the corpses and blood of countless soldiers. The price was so heavy that no one could measure it. Every moment the gears of history turn is filled with the lives of countless heroes. And all of this is thanks to these chaos believers. Just as Gilliman was searching for the devil's weakness, trying to completely eliminate this damned traitor. Let them understand that even if they succumb to an evil god, they'll still be a weakling. Verbal provocations are futile. Primarchs and the Empire will be a thing of the past. From this day forward, the galaxy will be a land of war and slaughter. The skull of a Primarch of a corpse emperor will be the greatest gift offered to our Lord. The demon snorted, and scorching sparks flew from its nostrils. Flames raged fiercely around him, and the space around him distorted and glowed due to the intense heat. Go back and tell your foolish master that his bloody throne will be my spoils, and one day I will cut off his head and kick it around like a football. Gilliman's gaze was fearless. With the help of the domination template, he was absolutely confident that he could defeat his opponent. When Imperial soldiers and civilians see the Primarch, they will become followers, and the domination template will help him transform the beliefs provided by these followers into power. The more faith God receives, the more power he gains. The more followers Gilliman gains, the more power he will acquire. With the power of the Primarch and the unwavering faith of his many followers, defeating a warp archdeacon was not a difficult task. Enraged by Gilliman's insult to the chaos god he served, the great demon roared, causing the earth to shake and thunder to rumble across the sky. The demon's power was unleashed, terrifying the Imperial soldiers on the battlefield. Their bodies, gripping laser guns, trembled uncontrollably. The Chaos Army rejoiced, howling in praise of the horrible demon, hoping it would lead them to conquer the world. The great demon strode heavily toward Gilliman. He brandished his great sword, attempting to kill Gilliman, seize his skull, and offer it before the throne of the blood god. You have slumbered for 10,000 years, while I have honed my skills day and night in the warp. Today, even if you are the Primarch, I will tell you that you are doomed. The demon roared, his power terrifying beyond measure. The poison-bladed tanks scattered in front of him were easily knocked away by a wave of his hand. He brandished his great sword, unleashing a powerful blow at Gilliman. Gilliman swung the Emperor's sword, blocking his attack. The collision created a shockwave that swept around the area. The demon roared, and Gilliman seized the opportunity to throw a punch. The power field of the power gauntlet was activated, and crackling arcs of dark blue light tore through the air. A whooshing sound rang out, and an indistinct afterimage appeared in the air. The demon was knocked to the ground. The enormous demonic body slid across the ground for more than 10 meters before crashing into a wrecked laser cannon and finally coming to a stop. Is this all the strength you've got? Looks like those 10,000 years of training haven't been worth it. But then again, it makes sense. How could a weakling succumb to the warp possibly improve? Go back and tell Kern, the blood god, to wash his neck clean. I'll take his head then. Gilliman looked at the demon he had punched to the ground and casually switched to taunt mode. In a fight against numerous evil gods and their minions, Gilliman dared not say he was guaranteed a victory. When it comes to mocking and inciting hatred, he is an absolute master. Back in the day, he was invincible on Beta Taiba and in group chats, sweeping everyone aside. As for whether mocking the Chaos God will lead to retaliation, that's really not a big problem. Chaos Gods are subject to certain restrictions and cannot enter the real universe. The rules of the universe restrict these evil gods. At most, they can only command their demons. In addition, there is the Emperor, who will not allow evil gods to enter. So what if he cursed? Kern can't do anything about it. How dare you insult my lord, the demon roared as he rose to his feet. I dare not only to humiliate your master, I dare to kill you. Gilliman strode forward and leaped down, aiming for his opponent's head. Chapter 6. The burning Emperor's sword came crashing down, and the demon instinctively raised his weapon to try and block it. His weapon was cleaved in two on the spot, and he also lost an arm engulfed in crimson flames. Even if they were human before, after gaining the favor of an evil god and ascending to demonhood, they will receive unimaginable blessings, possessing terrifying power and physique that ordinary people cannot reach. Gilliman had no idea how many human planets this guy had slaughtered in the past 10,000 years, or how many skulls he had contributed to the blood god Kern, in order to gain Kern's favor and elevate him from human to warp archdelan. Even if the astral army, composed of ordinary people, were numerous, it would be difficult for them to defeat a traitor who had ascended to demonic status. Even the space marines, hailed as imperial angels, need the help of Shinik think tanks to slay a single demon. Of all the Empire's forces, only the Grey Knights, who specialize in dealing with demons, suffered relatively low casualties. The terror of the Great Demon is unimaginable. The powerful Tsianch demon can even affect an entire galaxy and extinguish stars. If a demon of this caliber were to appear on any planet, an extermination order could basically be issued. An extermination order is a physical extermination of irredeemable planets by the Imperial Navy using weapons such as whirlwind torpedoes and light lances. The bombardment continues until not a single blade of grass remains on the planet's surface before it stops. It is easy to imagine how powerful and terrifying the warp demons are. Even saints with the power of emperors must be on high alert, otherwise they may very well capsize. But in Gilliman's presence, a warp demon was so weak that it was no match for him at all. With a single strike, he severed his opponent's arm, severely injuring him with the holy power of the Emperor's sword. No matter how much the demon roared, it couldn't undo the fact that his weapon and arm had been severed by a single sword strike. The demon's brownish-yellow eyes were filled with disbelief. He had been severely injured in a single blow, which made him question the meaning of life. Is this guy in front of me really someone who has been asleep for 10,000 years and has only just awakened? Even if the Primarch is terrifying, it can't be this terrifying, can it? He was an ancient relic who had experienced the Great Crusade 10,000 years ago. Later, he betrayed the Empire with his genetic father, Angren, and joined the Chaos Gods. After the defeat of the Battle of Terra led by Horus, he fled to the Eye of Terror with the other chapters. Even though he hadn't come into contact with any Primarchs who had ascended to demonic status in the past 10,000 years, nor had he fought against any Primarchs loyal to the Empire. But his memory can't be wrong. The Primarch from 10,000 years ago did not possess the power to severely injure a warp archmages with a single blow. Celestine, Amar Ridge, and others were also amazed by Gilliman's performance. Even though they were mentally prepared after all, he was the Emperor's son, and it was normal for him to possess great power. This scene was still far too terrifying. A single blow severely damaged the warp space demon. Gilliman possesses not only the power of the Primarch himself, but also the added strength of human conviction gathered for him by the domination template. The more beings who trust and worship him, the greater the power he can command. They are like legendary gods. The more faith one has, the more powerful one becomes. When Gilliman went to the battlefield, the Imperial soldiers who knew of his resurrection screamed with excitement. His name spread among the terrified commoners, and everyone regarded him as the savior sent by the Emperor. Even though most of the planet Makurug has fallen into the hands of the Chaos Forces, it still has millions of soldiers and billions of Imperial civilians. The blessings these people bestowed upon him were terrifying, making it extremely easy for him to fight a great demon. Unexpectedly, the so-called bloodthirsty and savage Kern is actually the weakest of the 4 gods. Tisk tisk, I bet your master isn't much better. I strongly suggest you consult with those followers of Chalice, their effeminate moves are far more lethal than yours. Guilliman mocked his opponent, causing the great demon whose arm he had severed to roar incessantly, its rage reaching its peak. Selene is the Slaanesh among the Chaos Gods, and is also the being most hated by Kern, the Chaos God. Guilliman's words were tantamount to suggesting that a tough, muscular man give up training and put on a cute girl combat suit instead, so that he would be more lethal. That was truly killing him and destroying his spirit. The demon was so enraged he wanted to devour him alive. Unfortunately, his weapon was cleaved in 2, and even as a warp archdeacon, he could not withstand the attack of a primarch and was forced to retreat twice by Guilliman. Several Chaos Warriors attempted to launch an attack to rescue the great demon, but Guilliman swept them aside with his imperial sword, slicing through their bodies and cutting into their armor, which had been soaked in the eye of terror for millennia and had grown flesh and eyes. Why aren't you saying anything? You people from the warp, aren't you supposed to be very talkative? Weak ants. Guilliman approached the great demon he had severely injured step by step, his tone laced with mockery. The golden flames on the Emperor's holy sword in his hand rose even higher, becoming incomparably dazzling and carrying a sacred aura. As the Primarch slowly approached, the demon was filled with rage, yet could only roar in utter helplessness. He was no match for Guilliman, the latter was merely humiliating him, which was why he hadn't delivered a fatal blow. Guilliman also referred to him as an ant, a term he always used to describe humans. Every time he entered the real universe, he would utter this contemptuously to the human warriors who tried to drive him away. Now, he has been verbatim retorted, and one can imagine how humiliating this is. You will pay the price. The gods are watching you, Robert Guilliman. What do you think you can do? Your return is just a game to excite the gods. You've changed everything. Before the great demon could finish speaking, Guilliman swung the Emperor's sword and severed the great demon's head. The enormous head rolled several times on the ground before finally coming to rest next to a wrecked hovercraft. The villain talks too much, he's about to die, yet he's still spouting threats. Guilliman bent down, picked up Kabad's demon head, and held it up. Upon witnessing the defeat of the warp demon, countless Astragalus, Macgrak guards, and space marines erupted in cheers. Even Celestine, Amaric, and others showed expressions of excitement. The warp demons were enemies that even they could hardly defeat. However, the resurrected Primarch beheaded him in just a few moves and took his head as a trophy. This invincible scene of slaying a warp demon convinced all warriors that Guilliman was the Emperor's gift, returning to their side to save the Empire and humanity from the abyss. The great demon was killed by the resurrected Primarch, and the morale of the Chaos Army collapsed immediately, leaving them with no semblance of resistance. The Imperial Army, emboldened by Guilliman's return, charged the enemy with shouts of slogans and oaths. No human traitor or chaotic demon leaves their homeland alive, all invaders must pay the price. The battle in Makrach's near-Earth orbit was also affected by the ground forces. The Imperial fleet's morale soared upon learning of the Primarch's return and the defeat of the surface Chaos Army. At the same time, reinforcements from other chapters arrived. Accompanied by bursts of intense flashes, magnificent warships leaped out of the void of the subspace channel and entered the real universe, launching attacks on the mixed fleet. The Chaos Fleet was routed and, realizing their mission had failed, had no choice but to retreat. However, the Imperial fleet relentlessly pursued them, vowing to annihilate them all. Ultimately, only a few lucky Chaos ships managed to escape the gravitational influence of the star system, tearing through the veil of reality and escaping into subspace. After the fighting subsided, Makurug suffered unprecedented losses. On the space battlefield, wreckage burned everywhere, and cold corpses floated among it. Rescue and cleanup operations were quickly launched. The surface was equally devastated, the city of Makurug was reduced to ruins, and countless people were killed or injured. Compared to these heavy losses, people still feel that it was all worthwhile. They welcomed back the Emperor's own son, and the dark universe was no longer devoid of hope. Excited space marines, Astra clans, planetary defense forces, and countless civilians poured in from all directions. They shouted Guilliman's name and sang hymns praising the Emperor to express their excitement. The war had initially turned into a decisive disadvantage, but with Guilliman's resurgence, they easily defeated the invading demons and traitors. Everyone cheered for Guilliman's name. 10,000 years of dark struggle finally brought them the guidance of a great soul. Gilliman embodies this great spirit, whether it be a planetary noble in fine clothes or a commoner in rags. The survivors came from all over the planet, from other planets in the Mercurug star system. When Gilliman, clad in blue power armor, stepped off the battlefield, he was greeted by an overwhelming, tsunami-like roar of cheers. Everyone looked at Gilliman with excitement, and some women holding children couldn't help but cry, raising their children high in the air, hoping their children could see this savior from mythology. Calgert instructed the Ultramarines to use their own bodies to create a barrier for the father of Genesis, otherwise he would have been overwhelmed and swarmed by the fanatical crowd. Everyone is cheering. They hope that you, as the Emperor's son, can liberate them from this eternal war. Saint Celestine stood beside Gilliman. As a follower of the Emperor, she was entitled to stand beside a primarch. That's what awakened me, Gilliman replied calmly. Chapter 7. Gilliman's voice wasn't loud, but it possessed a special magic that penetrated the crowd, making the cheering crowd even more excited. Ragged but devout followers of the state religion were so excited that they knelt and prostrated themselves, singing poems praising the Emperor. He did not forget humanity, but revived his own child to help them escape this dark and terrifying world and embrace a new and hopeful future. Some believers couldn't help but weep. They took out electric whips and lashed their bodies, inflicting more pain to express their devotion to the Emperor. Look at him, child. He is the light of humanity, the salvation of mankind. A woman held up her infant child, only a few months old, so that he would remember the figure in the azure power armor. Long live the Emperor! Long live Gilliman! Someone shouted the first time. Long live the Emperor! Long live Gilliman! More people joined in the chant. Long live the Emperor! Long live Gilliman! Later on, everyone was shouting, soldiers and civilians alike were cheering. The thought of an emperor's son and a primarch who had sworn to save their genes filled them with immense excitement. Gilliman was also astonished. The power of human belief on the domination template was rapidly increasing. He also felt an invisible force constantly flowing into his body, making him stronger. There was even a strange feeling that he could take on 10 of those great demons by himself. This is only the blessing from the Mercurug star system. Imagine what it would be like if it received the blessing from all of humanity in the Empire. Gilliman suddenly realized that fighting against evil gods was actually quite a promising endeavor. I must work hard to defeat the blood god brute and kick the Slaanesh freak as soon as possible, become a king and a tyrant, dominate the Warhammer universe, and then dominate the multiverse, open a path home, and stage a scene of the God of War's return. The battle was over, and Gilliman, under the protection of the Ultramarines, entered the inner city of Macragge. The streets along the way were packed with people from all over the country. The shattered starport, billowing with black smoke, and the endless stream of spacecraft landing all were there for him. When these people looked at Gilliman, their eyes were red and swollen. They would burst into tears and shout slogans like "Long live Gilliman," just because he glanced at them. Gilliman looked at the crowd. These should all be considered fanatics, and it wouldn't be difficult for him to get them to die for him. Archizage Call of the Cult of Mechanics and Chapter Master Karga followed behind Gilliman. Gilliman's successful resuscitation signifies a glimmer of hope for humanity in this dark and hopeless universe. This greatly pleased the mechanic, as it had not been in vain that he had spent thousands of years traveling the galaxy collecting various technologies in order to resurrect Gilliman. All the efforts have finally paid off, and the galaxy is about to enter a new era. Guilliman has returned from the dead, still upholding his mission, to fight for humanity and for the Emperor. Even though the Empire has been torn apart by the Great Rift in the warp, plunging countless worlds into darkness, the mechanic Call understands that as long as Guilliman returns, humanity still has hope of regrouping and fighting against chaos once again. The warband leader, Karga, was beaming with excitement, even a nerve cable in his head seemed to radiate joy and excitement. The awakening of the father of genetics filled him and the other Ultra Warriors with uncontrollable excitement. Celestine, Amaric, and others were also in the group, their faces showing the same ecstatic joy. This was an unprecedented victory, not only because the enemy was driven out, but more importantly because Guilliman had returned. Surrounded by his entourage, Guilliman walked toward the inner city of Makurug, his gaze sweeping over the ancient city. Behind the excited cheers of those people lay the ruins of Makurug. The battle was won, but at a heavy price. Countless civilians perished in the rampage of the Chaos Army, their bodies lay scattered in the ruins, awaiting burial. Countless fearless guardians of the Empire lay dead in the trenches. The shattered cannons and tanks, still burning fiercely, sparks flying from the circuit boards, seemed to mourn the loss of life. Countless buildings collapsed under the ravages of the Chaos Army's artillery fire, and those precious works of art were reduced to ashes. Makulak won the victory, but he was left devastated and scarred. Their own recovery has temporarily suppressed their grief, but this grief will eventually be released. The war between Chaos and Empire will continue, and the thought that this dampened Guilliman's initial joy at taking on 10 enemies at once. Guilliman understood that countless more people would fall in the war, and that countless lives would be lost in the struggle for victory and for the survival of humanity. Every moment of the Gears of Fate is filled with the ashes of human heroes, all for the sake of defending human survival and dignity. I just hope everything will turn out well. I don't want to be captured by an evil god and used as a toy, Guilliman thought, gathering his composure. Surrounded by the procession, he walked through the cheering crowd and returned to the ruined sanctuary. The corpses, rubble, and shattered demon engines, these heavy war vehicles, including the dreadnoughts, have all been cleared and transported elsewhere. In the sanctuary, many high-ranking members of the various chapters, along with the great sage Call and Saint Celestine, paid homage to Guilliman in turn. Through their accounts, Guilliman gained a clear understanding of all aspects of the current empire. Even though he had prepared himself mentally, what Guilliman heard still made his heart pound. The fall of Kadayan Fortress ripped apart the entire galaxy, unleashing countless demons that materialized and invaded the human world, causing indescribable and horrific casualties. No world was spared, all were ravaged or invaded by terrible demons, mutants, or traitors. Without a doubt, the empire of today has long since deviated from the vision of the Emperor and the Primarchs, becoming what they most abhorred, and has entered its darkest and most hopeless era. The former empire was built by the Emperor and the Primarch with countless efforts. It was a golden age filled with hope and triumph. People emerged from ignorance, embraced science and reason anew, and the imperial expeditionary forces spread the Emperor's glory to every planet. Those were beautiful and hopeful years. After listening to Celestine, Calgar, and the others explain the current situation, Guilliman, citing his need to be alone, asked them all to leave. Standing before the broken window, watching the people outside the sanctuary carrying away corpses, Guilliman sighed softly. Horus, you truly do not deserve forgiveness. The repercussions of Horus's rebellion still echo 10,000 years later. Abaddon, the former first company commander of the Sons of Horus and the most loyal to Horus, became the new war master of the Chaos Gods during the years since the Primarch's departure, launching attacks on the Imperium time and time again. In the course of 10,000 years of torment and war, the Empire, in its struggle for survival, slowly abandoned reason and the future, transforming into a bloated, absurd, ignorant, and cruel bureaucratic entity. There was not a trace of reason or hope in sight, only fear, hatred, and ignorance sustained this enormous zombie to its last breath. Primarch Guillemon was an absolute idealist. Even among his brothers, none of them envisioned a bright future with such hope as he once did. Physical memories affect the soul and cause it sorrow. Humanity has suffered terribly for the past 10,000 years, the tiny galaxy is teeming with their enemies. Traitors and chaotic demons are plundering them with impunity, and races from beyond the galaxy are also attacking them relentlessly. Humanity today is far less advanced than it was during the great expeditions of the past. Compared to its former golden age, it can be described as even more tragic. We need a completely new plan, Guillemon mused. Helping the Empire defeat chaos wasn't just for humanity, but also for himself. The evil god pays close attention to the Primarch. If he fails, his soul will definitely fall into the hands of those guys. At that time, he will truly be unable to live or die, and will suffer torment for all eternity. He can't afford to lose. If he loses, it will be really bad. Chapter 8. Guillemon pondered his next move, taking stock of the current situation with all parties involved. Given how this universe unfolds, the gods have been paying attention to him since the moment he awoke. Those traitorous Primarches will soon begin their plans against him. If I remember correctly, the traitorous Primarch of the Emperor's sons, Thorgrim, will be the first to strike. This guy killed Pherelas, the Primarch of the Iron Hand Legion, 10,000 years ago, becoming the first traitorous Primarch to kill his own brother. After Horus's rebellion failed, he was severely wounded in the chase in Thessaly. Most importantly, this guy became the chosen one of the chaos god Slaanesh, and turned tormenting people into an art form. The demons and followers under Slaanesh, well, what can I say? It's just that kind of thing, very indulgent, very unrestrained, with no taboos, willing to do anything in pursuit of pleasure. Many handsome guys might think they'd be a good match for this evil god. After all, the female demons under Slaanesh's command are all pretty hot, and they think they could definitely do that with him. In fact, no one could withstand the terror of Slaanesh's followers. It is an absolute truth that one would rather be killed by Kern's followers than live under the demons and followers of Slaanesh. Kern simply wanted people to die. Tzeentch enjoyed manipulating people's fates, Nurgle wanted to give people twisted love, and Slaanesh truly wanted everyone to experience pleasure that was worse than death. Thorgrim's threat level, extremely high. I'd rather die than fall into that guy's hands. Besides this, there's also Magnus, the Primarch of the Thousand Sons, nicknamed Little Magnus. This guy has also ascended to madness, becoming the chosen one of the chaos god Tzeentch, wielding unparalleled magic. His greatest feat is teleporting an entire planet across half the galaxy. Thinking about this, Guillemon felt a bit of a headache. Moving an entire planet across tens of thousands of light years in a fantasy novel, that would make him a god-level powerhouse. The more I think about it, the more speechless I become. This world is beyond words. Technology is technology, and magic is magic. What does it mean to combine technology with magic? Little Ma is a formidable fighter who has mastered the ultimate skills of the evil god, and he loves to plot and scheme. Anyone who isn't careful will fall into his traps and get killed. Besides these, there's also Logr, the Primarch of the Word-Bearers, who has a blood feud with the Ultramarines and wishes he could tear them apart, and is known as the Charlatan. The two scenarios above are based solely on the struggle between chaos and humanity, with little personal animosity between the two sides. Loka, this charlatan, has a personal grudge against Guillemon. This personal feud between the two sides is irreconcilable, one of them must fall. The feud began when Guillemon, on the Emperor's orders, burned down the City of Faith, and the Emperor forced the entire legion of Word-Bearers to kneel and admit their mistake. In the early stages of the Horus Rebellion, the Word-Bearers staged the great betrayal of Kos against the Ultramarines, turning an entire planet into glass. Guillemon was also stabbed by Cole Fallon, the first company commander of the Word-Bearers, and this wound became a weakness. Later, in the Battle of Thessalon, he was stabbed in the same spot by Thorgrim. Gilliman was essentially betrayed by the word-bearers from beginning to end. In the great betrayal of Kos, the Ultramarines were caught off guard and decimated. Countless Imperial auxiliary forces and civilians were killed or wounded, and radiation levels across the entire system plummeted, making survival on the surface impossible. Thus, a blood feud was formed. Gilliman pondered the comparison of strength between himself and the enemy, and a chill ran down his spine. Those traitorous Primarchs are still alive, and there are still evil gods watching over them. I'm all alone here. All the loyal Primarchs are gone, the Emperor is half dead, and there's the corrupt Terran Council, the fanatical state cult, the custodian guard like a bunch of shut-ins, and the warbands that obey orders but not commands. Currently, the Empire is still torn apart by the Great Rift, and the other side has lost the guidance of the Imperial Starlight and is no longer in contact. The Empire was like a patient suffering from severe blood loss, on the verge of death at any moment. Most importantly, the Empire's enemies are not just chaos. In addition to chaos, there are the Tyranids from outside the galaxy, the awakened space undead, the Tau people who are preparing to rise, and the Eldar who are lying in their coffins but still have one last breath left. Gilliman just wanted to ask, can't we just surrender and lose half? With so many forces at play, and considering the current state of the Empire, humanity is definitely doomed. Without the Lord of Domination template and database, Gilliman would have preferred to simply sail away. If you can't win, what's the point of staying? Support spirit, Gilliman called out in his mind. Yes, host, what kind of help do you need? Where's my reward? Gilliman asked. You've already been granted level 1 database access, you just haven't opened the database yet. Then open the database. Okay, the assistant wizard will connect to the database for you. As the support spirit spoke, a screen of light appeared in front of Gilliman. He reached out and touched it, only to find that it was not real, but an illusion. As he thought of it, the things on the light screen kept changing. Super Soldier Modification Technology, Angel Dark Matter Computer Engine Technology, Yamato Battleship Construction Blueprints, Individual Soldier Auxiliary Combat Suit, Venomous Fang Plasma Gun Firing Blueprints, Warp Drive Principle Diagram, Interstellar Battleship Firing Blueprints, Planet Destroying Weapon, Death Star Design Blueprints. Biological Gene Enhancement Surgery Principle Diagram, Biological Induced Evolution Technology Diagram, Biological Genome Remodeling. Special Alien Plant Cultivation Manual, So Care from Beginner to Grave, 108 Ways to Tame a Siberian Husky. As Gilliman reviewed the database, he found the knowledge contained within to be vast and abundant, even terrifying. Is this the knowledge that level 1 access is allowed? Gilliman asked. Yes, host, this is the knowledge that level 1 privileges can access. Gilliman gazed at the Death Star and the first-generation Angel Engine's dark matter engine technology, pondered for a moment, and then asked, how many levels of access control are there in the database? There are 10 levels in total, with 10 authentication tasks. Completing all 10 will grant you full database access. If level 1 gives you Death Star and Super Soldier technology, then levels 2 and 3 must be even more terrifying, all about technological knowledge? Or does it mean that at higher levels, they'll give you things from the mystical side? Gilliman asked, voicing his confusion. If level 1 items are this powerful, what about level 2 and 3? What will they give us then? At levels 4 or 5, I fear the Void Computer Engine and the Time-Space Annihilation Bomb might be unleashed. What else can you get at levels 7 or 8? Gilliman guessed it was something from the mystical realm, a top-tier divine object or powerful technique that could make a person immortal. The database contains only knowledge about civilization and does not include anything useless to the development of civilization. Hearing this, Gilliman paused. What's in the level 10 database? A trans-universe engine, a pan-universe concept weapon, or a cosmic reboot device. The path of technology is endless. Host, there's no need for excessive speculation. Please strive towards the ultimate goal, civilization transcendence and domination of diversity. Hearing the support spirit's words, Gilliman smiled. Just surviving was already a miracle, how could he possibly transcend it? Unable to find out what was in the level 10 database, Gilliman stopped pursuing it. Take your time. One day you'll be able to unlock level 10 permissions, and then you'll be able to see what's in the level 10 database. Gilliman calmed down and began to study database knowledge. This knowledge will be his key asset in rebuilding the Empire and restoring humanity's fighting power. With his incredible mental processing power, Gilliman quickly selected the most important and currently most helpful scientific knowledge. Summon the Mechanics, Saints, Chapter Masters, and others, I need to hold a meeting. Gilliman activated the communicator in the room and instructed the guards waiting outside. He wants to convene a meeting to set the tone for development, while also preparing the fleet to cleanse the chaotic remnants of the 500 worlds. Then, using the 500 worlds as a base, sweep across the entire Empire, purging chaos and aliens, and stopping the Empire's bloodshed. Chapter 9. Those who had influence participated in the meeting convened by Gilliman. Chapter Master Kargar, along with the chapter commanders, saints, Mechanics, and many others, all gathered in the council hall of Hera Fortress, where Gilliman was located. This fortress has a very long history, dating back 10,000 years, and has witnessed many extraordinary historical events. Back when Horus rebelled, the warp storm raged, communication between star systems was cut off, the Emperor was trapped on Terra, and many loyalist armies were leaderless. The primarchs of the three legions gathered here to discuss the fate of humanity. In the blink of an eye, 10,000 years have passed since then. Everything has changed. The long span of 10,000 years has taken away many things, but it has also brought many things. Traces left by invaders can still be faintly seen on Hera Fortress. The Tyranids, the Orcs, and Chaos have all invaded this place. As a crucial defensive position in Makurug, Hera Fortress was always a primary target for enemy attacks. Not long ago, this place was also listed as a target to be destroyed by the Chaos Army, which sent a large number of cultists, Chaos Warriors, and demons to invade this place. When Gilliman awoke, the Chaos Army had already reached the interior of the fortress, which was filled with ruins and corpses. Now, the place has been almost completely repaired, and the bodies have all been removed. The damaged marble pillars and floors were replaced, and the broken streets were repaired. The Thinker computer, used for tactical projection and data storage, had several new wet components replaced, allowing it to return to normal operation. Gilliman surveyed the numerous Imperial heroes. If he weren't the Emperor's son, the Primarch, it's likely no one would have the ability to gather so many high-ranking figures. Everyone here has the right to independently deploy and command the Imperial fleet. With a single word, they can decide the future of millions of people and wipe out planets and individuals they deem a threat to human survival. Everyone here possesses courage, strategy, and a strong sense of the big picture. They have an infinite love for humanity and unwavering loyalty to the Empire, and will not hesitate to sacrifice others and themselves for the continuation of the Empire and the survival of humanity. In the center of the council hall was an oval table. The internal machinery hummed softly as people sat down, and one tactical projection after another appeared in the air, hovering there. These projections illustrate the threats currently facing the extreme starfield. The collapse of Fort Kadaya has affected this area. Demons and aliens are wreaking havoc on humanity's planet. Those citizens of the Empire living in fear desperately needed salvation. Beside the group, mechanical priests and slaves dressed in dirty red robes were pacing back and forth, maintaining the Thinker computers and various mechanical devices used in the hall. It is worth mentioning that the Thinker computer is a computer that uses the human brain as its core component. Humanity's golden age was marred by the rebellion of intelligent AI, and for this reason, the Empire absolutely forbids the existence of robots and computers without human flesh and blood. This is one of the Empire's red lines. Anyone who crosses this red line will be declared a human traitor, and the Imperial Army will spare no effort to exterminate them. The thinker computer uses a human brain, which could also be said to be derived from the cloned brains of unforgivable Imperial sinners or the Mechanikus. These brains, after being specially programmed, are placed in hardened glass jars, and numerous data cables connect the brains to the machine, thus forming a thinker computer. After everyone was seated, Guilliman walked to his seat at the head of the table. Everyone was watching him, their eyes revealing undisguised fervor and excitement. Their eyes followed Guilliman's every move. For these loyal individuals, being able to travel alongside an emperor's son was undoubtedly a tremendous honor, one they would remember for a lifetime. Guilliman could feel those gazes and felt a little pressured. Everyone is waiting for him to lead the empire and save humanity. Anyone would be nervous in such a situation. After all, it's a battle against the gods, and if he loses, it's game over. The Empire's situation remains dire. Besides the Chaos invasion, the rampage of alien races like the Tyranids and Necrons has left us besieged on all sides. Please feel free to express your thoughts and opinions without regard to status or position. Guilliman's voice wasn't loud, but it was extremely penetrating. His voice echoed throughout the entire Parliament Hall, ensuring that everyone could hear him clearly. Regent, you must go to Terra. It is the heart of the Empire, the place with the highest concentration of human elites. There, you will gain the power and resources to rebuild the human empire. Grand Marshal Amaric, the chapter master of the Black Templar chapter, was the first to speak. His reasoning was sound. Terra was the most important capital planet of the Empire, and all the elites in the Empire who could go to Terra would go there. Wealth, status, everything there was so alluring. As the Emperor's son and a member of the mythical genetic order, Guilliman has every legitimate reason to return to Terra, the cradle of humanity, formerly known as Earth. He has the right to take over the highest authority in the Empire, the Terran Council, and restore the Regent's powers. Upon hearing the Black Templar Marshal's words, Guilliman replied, "Now is not the best time to return to Terra. We cannot save the Empire all at once. We need preparations, we need a stable rear. Nobody knows what the situation is like on Terra after the Great Rift. A hasty return will only put us in a more passive position. The 500 worlds under Altaramar's command need saving. This is the best preserved region in the entire Empire and can provide us with enough warships and warriors. Return to Terra? Wouldn't that have meant the Emperor could have burned it all down?" Guilliman seriously doubted how long he could keep the secret of having a transmigrator soul hidden from the evil god and the Emperor. Before his identity is exposed, Guilliman decides to gather as many trusted confidants as possible, build his own support system, and enhance his ability to protect himself. More importantly, there is another matter. Terra, and indeed the entire solar system, is the territory of the High Lords Council, the Inquisition, the state religion, and the Mechanikus. While there are many loyalists, there are also many power-hungry individuals who would never willingly relinquish their power for the sake of loyalty. Horus, too, was troubled by the fact that the Emperor excluded Primarchs and Space Marines when he created the Terran Council. He was tempted by chaos and chose to betray the Primarchs, thus launching the massive Horus Rebellion. Power is such a captivating thing. Guilliman's arrival would require him to consolidate power, reorganize Terra, and reunite the Empire. The resistance he would face would be considerable, and any misstep could lead to unrest and turmoil. Now is not the time to go there. Instead of wasting time trying to maintain a political balance, it would be better to first strengthen our own army and break the deadlock directly through force. Guilliman's words sparked some discussion, but there wasn't much opposition to his plan to first reorganize Ultramar as a rear base. Ultramar is the collective name for the 500 worlds, and each of these worlds can be described as paradise compared to the other worlds of the Empire. Each world possesses a complete industrial system, medical care, and self-sufficient food, which is unimaginable in other imperial worlds. Restoring order and production to the 500 worlds under the control of Ultramar is of paramount importance for saving the Empire and humanity. Gilliman put forward numerous proposals regarding war, preparing to sweep through the entire Altramar and maintain stability in this substellar region. The meeting then shifted its focus to how to pacify the territory of Otlama. After discussion, the group decided to launch a full-scale counterattack, centered on Makurug. Gilliman named this all-out counterattack war the War of Indomitable Spirit, signifying that humanity would not succumb to the dark fate spoken of by the Chaos Gods, but would fight back with all its might. After the meeting, Gilliman kept the mechanical sage, Kal, behind. He had some important things to tell him privately, things that would concern the future of the Empire and humanity. Chapter 10. In the vast Parliament Hall, only Gilliman and Kal remained, everyone else had left. As a sage of the cult of mechanics, Kal, with his mechanical body, is in no way inferior to Gilliman, the Primarch, in terms of height. Over the course of 10,000 years, Kal underwent multiple rounds of technological modifications, leaving him with almost no flesh and blood. His back was a huge, shell-like metal structure, on which stood a force field generator, from which extended several active metal robotic arms and several suspended metal skulls connected by neural cables. In addition to those, numerous high-energy weapons collected from all over the galaxy were also embedded in it, connecting his brain and spine. The lower body was also sculpted into a completely mechanical form, producing a mechanical hum and the sound of pistons moving back and forth with every step. A glow emanated from Kal's chest. Clearly, this madman had inserted a nuclear fusion energy source into his chest to power his numerous weapons. Even though this wasn't Gilliman's first time seeing the cult of machines up close, he was still amazed by its design. This truly puts into practice the saying, "Flesh and blood are fleeting, but machinery soars." The Mechanics are truly hateful, they have completely abandoned women. "Kar, come to me," Gilliman said, his tone heavily laced with emotion. Kal is the key to his resurrection and one of the people he trusts most right now. At least for now, Kal will not betray him. He traveled for tens of thousands of years on a single promise, wandering through various galaxies in search of his resurrection. Searching for technologies lost in the long river of history and buried in ancient sites. If people like this are not trustworthy, then what loyalty is there in this world? Of course, in this damn universe, everything changes over time, and Gilliman must also be prepared for the possibility that everyone might betray him. "Your Highness, what are your orders?" Kal stepped forward, his heavy metal frame leaving marks on the marble floor. His eyes gleamed with a mechanical light, and if you looked closely, you could faintly see the turning of mechanical gears. The eyes of the mechanical sage are no longer simply flesh and blood, but electronic eyes that are a mixture of machinery and flesh, possessing multiple surveying functions. Gilliman paused for a moment, then produced a data storage device, saying, "This storage device contains knowledge I secretly collected 10,000 years ago. This knowledge can help us build a completely new army, and this new army will help us regain control of the galaxy." The contents of the data storage device are naturally not knowledge from 10,000 years ago. Instead, it was compiled by Gilliman from a database. Claiming its knowledge from 10,000 years ago is simply a convenient excuse to deceive potential future obstacles from the Mechanics movement. If you don't believe it, the cult of mechanics can go back 10,000 years to verify it. What? You can't verify it? That's none of my business, this is technology from 10,000 years ago. Bypassing the cult of mechanics and building a completely new army was one of the most important reasons why Gilliman stayed in the world of Altramar 500. As a key ally of the Empire and the main provider of mechanical equipment, the Mechanics has become increasingly closed-minded and rigid over the past 10,000 years. It takes hundreds of years for a completely new product to go from testing to establishing an assembly line. Gilliman didn't have that much time to wait for the mechanics to validate the technology he presented. By the time they finish verifying it, the Empire will have long since collapsed, and I'll probably have become a plaything for those evil gods. He decided to stay in Altramar, his stronghold, where the influence of the cult of mechanics wasn't as significant. With the support of Kalga, Celestine, and others, he has more room to maneuver and can quickly build a powerful new army by leveraging the power of the 500 worlds. This powerful army will be the key to pulling the Empire back from the abyss. Given the current complex situation in the Empire, this is Guilliman's best option. The Empire was too vast, with various forces intertwined and interdependent. The internal struggles among Terra's High Lords, the governors of various planets, the noble classes of different worlds, the Astral Army, the Imperial Navy, the Custodian Army, the Inquisition, other star chapters, and so on are quite intense. On the other hand, the Mechanic Use considers itself an ally of the Empire and is quite inclined to obey orders but not proclamations. The infamous War of the Beasts was a disastrous defeat, nearly leading to the Empire's fall to the Greenskin Orcs. Besides this, there's also the huge pitfall of the state religion, where the power struggles are extremely serious. They've even launched several so-called Holy Wars of Atonement, each time throwing more than 10 warbands into the Eye of Terror, which is just handing chaos a huge gift. Those chapters that entered the Eye of Terror were mostly loyal, but because of the state religion's suspicion, they were forced to their deaths and became minions of evil gods. In order to maintain the Empire's rule, successive rulers constantly patched up the system. The entire Empire is now covered in patches, making it both ugly and bloated. The Empire is terminally ill, patching things up won't save it. Only a thorough reform, a radical overhaul, can revitalize it. The prerequisite for doing all this is that he must have an absolutely powerful army. Call looked at the data storage device Guilliman had provided, his face full of confusion. He didn't believe Guilliman possessed any remarkable technology. Out of respect for the original genome, Call accepted the memory and inserted it into the data interface located at the back of his brain. Data from the memory instantly flooded into his processor, and his previously bewildered face transformed into one of ecstatic joy. This was knowledge he had never encountered before. It contains blueprints for genetic modification and the construction of entirely new warships. Upon seeing the construction blueprints for the Death Star, a flush of excitement rose on Call's face. This is a world-destroying weapon. This warship, known as the Death Star, is definitely not a technology mastered by the cult of mechanics. Modern mechanical engineering has lost much of its knowledge, and what's worse, this knowledge is irreplaceable. Once lost, it would mean the Empire has completely lost this technology. Most of the technologies used in mechanics were not developed through research and development, but rather obtained by mining STC templates. In other words, the technology relies entirely on archaeology. There are innovations, but they are all minor tweaks to the STC template technology and do not touch the fundamentals. If too many modifications are made, it is easy for the cult of mechanics to suspect that they are blaspheming the god of machines, and thus be executed. Don't these technologies have STC templates? After reading the information, the mechanical sage Kaur looked up at Guilliman. No, these are all acquired through 10,000 years of learning, Guilliman said frankly, not hiding anything. If a technology lacks an STC template source, mechanical engineering will absolutely not allow it to be applied. Otherwise, they would wage war against industrial planets using this technology in the name of blasphemy against the god of all machines, annihilating them and preventing them from applying these technologies. Guilliman looked at the mechanical sage, Call, who, if he remembered correctly, was a radical, or so-called reformer. Now, another voice has emerged within the cult of mechanics, no longer blindly following ancient dogmas, but advocating for reformative innovation in various technologies in order to enhance the Empire's strength. The conservatives stubbornly believed that the radicals were traitors who had blasphemed the glory of the god of all machines, and the two sides fought fiercely. Then what do you need me to do, Regent? Upon hearing this, Guilliman smiled slightly. As he knew, Call was not one of the conservatives in the solar system. Regarding the technology, he didn't care whether it came from the STC template. I need a completely new army, a complete overhaul from warships to individual soldier equipment, to ensure we can overwhelmingly crush the chaos traders and xenomorphs. I will grant you the authority to mobilize all the industrial planets of the 500 worlds to cooperate with you. Give me a confident answer, tell me you can easily handle it all. After I have wiped out the remaining chaos forces on the 500 worlds of Altramar, I will have an army to pave the way to Terra. I will fulfill your request, Regent, and equip your army with the best possible new gear. Call bowed slightly, his mechanical body making a metallic clicking sound with each movement. Very good. Remember, this idea stamping technology needs to be developed as a priority and kept strictly confidential. No related information is allowed to be disclosed, Guillemon said in a low voice. Understood, Regent. Chapter 11. In a sense, the idea stamp is a kind of dark technology that uses mechanical techniques to solidify a person's belief. The human brain is incredibly complex, different neurons are located in different areas and are responsible for different regions. There are also specific neural regions responsible for judging right and wrong. For example, the proposition that water is poisonous. This proposition requires multiple verifications. For example, what kind of water, and what is in the water, are needed to determine whether the water is toxic. The process of making decisions based on thought is extremely complex. However, thought imprinting can bypass these processes and directly obtain the answer. When a piece of information enters the brain, by influencing a certain part of the neural network, the brain can make a judgment without thinking and believe that the information is true. In other words, once the idea that water is poisonous is imprinted in a person's mind, it means that person will truly regard all water as poison. Given the complexity of the empire and the unique nature of his own identity, Guillemon decided to utilize this technology. Guillemon had no choice but to stand firmly on the side of humanity. The Emperor is on the side of humanity, but he may not necessarily be on the side of Guillemon. Another time traveler, and another one with a cheat-like advantage. Once the Emperor deems him an enemy and a potential threat to humanity, he might just have to get rid of him. If I get arrested while I'm in Terra, I'm doomed. These nerdy guards have a lot of grievances against the Primarch. If the Emperor gives the order, they'll kill Guillemon in a heartbeat. Some conservatives and diehards were very dissatisfied with Guillemon's changes to the Emperor's things and his reforms of the Empire's bloated system in the original storyline. Some even rebelled and refused to obey Terra's orders anymore. These guys are all potential threats. In addition to these threats, the invasion of chaos is another very thorny issue. We can't let the weapons we create fall into the hands of traitors and be used against humanity itself. That would be really terrible. Guillemon needed a trump card to imprint his ideology on those new recruits. Make them resolutely hate chaos and everything related to chaos, and at the same time give them command authority above the Emperor's authority. In this way, even if the Emperor turns against them, they can at least escape unscathed and not be killed in Terra. As Call looked at Guillemon with a smile on his face, even the high-speed processing of the AI's core momentarily froze. He had already read the contents of the data storage device, so he naturally knew what this thought imprint was. Regent, this is the technology of imprinting thoughts. Call's tone was tinged with confusion. Do we really need to use this technology? You know the current state of the human empire, Call. We have no way out. The empire has persisted for 10,000 years, but it is retreating step by step in the face of chaos, growing weaker day by day, and is in a worse situation than during the Great Expedition. How can we cope with the increasingly terrifying war under such circumstances? If this continues, humanity will inevitably be completely destroyed by chaos. Extraordinary times call for extraordinary measures. We need an army absolutely loyal to humanity and the Empire. This army must be reliable and completely obedient to our orders and thoughts. You've already witnessed the corruption of Terran bureaucracy and the rigidity of the Mechanics. If we don't make changes, do you think we can defeat that terrifying chaos? Guillemon didn't want to reveal his true intentions, so he kept it to himself for now. Call frowned slightly, a strange light flashing in his electronic eyes. After a moment, he made his decision. I will fulfill your request, Regent. Call bowed, a mechanical hum accompanying his gesture. Gilliman smiled. That's for the best. Go and complete the task I assigned you. I want to see this army as soon as possible. I need it to stabilize the current chaotic situation in the human empire. After ending the conversation with the mechanical sage, Call. Gilliman summoned Evelyn and Visage, the leaders of the Death Army, and prepared to have a face-to-face conversation with them. The human empire has never liked aliens, and the people of Altera do not trust aliens to operate in their world. Before he leads his troops out to conquer the remaining chaotic forces of the 500 worlds of Altair, he must deal with the alien army of the Death Gods. The Death Army is not part of the Empire's organization, but rather an army derived from the ancient alien race, the Eldar. For some reason, they chose to help Call, Celestine, and others resurrect Gilliman. They put in a lot of effort to resurrect themselves, and Gilliman couldn't just kill them. That would be truly inhuman. The Eldar are slender and look similar to humans, except for their ears, which are very pointed. He was exceptionally handsome, possessing a kind of charisma that no human could imitate. Evelyn and Visage entered from outside the door, bowing slightly in greeting. This is my way of showing respect to the human regent. Gilliman gazed at the two, and even in this age of beauty filters, he had to admit that the Eldar were indeed very good-looking. Their waists were unbelievably thin. Gilliman doubted whether they could support the armor they wore. No need for formalities, speak directly to me. I have many mysteries that require your answers. Gilliman made the two of them straighten up and looked at them intently. It is worth mentioning that the Eldar were a significant factor in the creation of Slaanesh, one of the 4 Chaos Gods. The Eldar are a very ancient race, and legend has it that they once participated in the War of Heaven. In the War for Heaven, their creators were destroyed, and the hostile space undead fell into slumber. They gained the position of galactic overlords and entered their most prosperous phase. In the midst of prosperity, they gradually descended into depravity, sinking into an abyss of endless desire. The entire tribe succumbed to lust, indulging themselves wantonly. Their unrestrained thoughts and souls surged through the subspace, creating a tremendous echo that also awakened and nourished an ancient and terrifying being. The birth of Slaanesh unleashed a terrifying storm of souls, causing the vast Eldar Empire to collapse. The real universe was torn apart by the screams of the nascent evil god, forming the eye of terror that pierced through the warp and the real world. Countless Eldar were drained of their life force and psychic energy, becoming nourishment for Slaanesh. Even the gods once worshipped by the Eldar faced crises in this terrible catastrophe, either being destroyed or imprisoned. Only those Eldar who had the foresight to avoid participating in the Eldar society's corruption, and those who escaped into special spatial nodes beforehand, were able to survive in the Netway city. The souls of the Eldar are constantly watched by the Slaanesh. As soon as they die, they fall into the hands of the Slaanesh, suffer torment, become part of their nourishment, and are on the verge of destruction. However, their technology and genetic abilities remain formidable, making them a force to be reckoned with in the galaxy. Evelyn and Visage's army of the Reapers helped Call and the others escape the pursuit of the Chaos Army, fleeing the battlefield of Kadaya and successfully reaching Makraj. The stars have been torn apart. The most terrible catastrophe is about to befall the galactic inhabitants. Once the power of chaos breaks free from the warp, the galaxy will face its end. I am glad that our two races have been able to form an alliance to jointly resist this crisis. Gilliman nodded. I am also delighted with this alliance. The Empire is extremely honored to have your assistance. We are about to leave, but there are some things I must warn you. While Call's technology is powerful and has healed your body, your true wound lies at the level of your soul. Your ability to truly walk among the living depends on the power of death. If you cherish life, then from this day forward, you must never remove your armor. There is no need to worry, this armor is far more sturdy than you imagine. I don't want to discuss this matter in detail, nor do I want to explore what lies hidden behind the power that awakened me. But I still want to give you a warning: if you need human friendship, you must treat it sincerely. Any despicable means will only erode humanity's kindness and trust in you. I don't want the day we meet again to be facing each other with swords drawn on the battlefield. Gilliman smiled slightly. He didn't want to delve into the matter. He had already been resurrected, and any schemes the Eldar might have against him were no longer important. With the database and the control template, he can easily handle everything. He just wanted to give Evelyn a warning: if she resorted to underhanded tactics, the Death Army would definitely regret it in the future. Although he was their savior, when faced with the choice between his own life and the survival of humanity, he would not hesitate to draw his sword against the Eldar. We have heeded your warning and hope that when we meet again, we will be friends, not enemies. Evelyn bowed and then turned and left. That's settled then. Finally, I wish you a resounding victory and hope you teach our common enemy a lesson. And may you have good fortune in battle, Robert Gilliman, Evelyn said. The eyes of the gods and your traitorous brothers are watching you. Live as long as you can. After saying this, she turned and walked out. Vasach, who had remained silent, bowed to the Primarch with a samurai salute, and then also turned and left. Gilliman frowned, suddenly feeling incredibly tired. This universe is full of monsters. They're all shrewd and clever, they're not easy to fool. Having resolved the Eldar matter, Gilliman pressed the communicator. Let the planetary governors and merchant guild leaders who have been waiting in the wings come in. I have something to discuss with them. Chapter 12. The 500 worlds controlled by the Ultramarines can be considered the most dazzling jewels of the Empire. The country enjoys good public security, and the people's standard of living is generally among the highest of all planets in the Empire. During the Horus Rebellion, when the loyal army was scattered across the galaxy, Gilliman even considered making the 500 worlds a second base for humanity's fight against chaos, and forming a second Reich with the other two Primarches, the Primarch of the Legion of Dark Angels and the Primarch of the Blood Angels, Jill. Of course, before this idea could be realized, they discovered that the Emperor was still alive. The three Primarches then disbanded the Second Reich, led an expedition to aid Terra, and sealed away all records related to the event. Even if it doesn't come to fruition, it still demonstrates the potential of the 500 worlds. The 500 worlds is Gilliman's source of confidence, and he cannot afford to lose it. Upon hearing of his recovery, some planetary governors whose situations weren't too dire, along with Mary's traveling merchant Ronan, had already arrived. Others were either bogged down by the current dire situation or unwilling to obey the orders of a resurrected Primarch and come to Makraj. The Emperor and the Primarch have long become legends in mythology. 10,000 years is enough time to change many things. The former imperial truth has been swept into the dustbin of history, and the despised state religion has become a member of the Terra High Council. The cult of mechanics became increasingly closed-minded and conservative, and the Terran Council became increasingly pedantic. After the Kadaya incident, the vast empire bled rapidly like a bleeding zombie, and was even unable to react quickly. After 10,000 years of nurturing, various forces have become intricately intertwined, deeply embedded in the empire, constantly draining its resources in an attempt to completely devour it. Those who were unwilling to come remained on the sidelines, not wanting their rights to be taken away by a suddenly resurrected Primarch. Centuries and millennia of rule had led them to believe that the power they held was their birthright, a symbol of their superiority. Anyone who offends this point has undoubtedly become their enemy. Gilliman doesn't have the time to deal with them right now. He needs to deal with the world that is still willing to support him first. He must reform and revitalize the existing system, transforming the 500 worlds into a solid backing. Only in this way can he support his next plans. Optimize the population structure, provide conscription, re-establish the wealth distribution system, and incentivize people to produce more food and weapons. The bloated administrative departments and aristocratic system must be streamlined to reduce the financial burden and improve efficiency. Further efforts are needed to enhance the learning of the entire population, establish a research structure independent of the mechanical cult, and provide more military strength and reserve technical personnel for his upcoming expedition. The Mechanic-Use and the Empire are merely allies, and the Mechanic-Use holds a position within the Terra Council. Guilliman was not an emperor, he could not guarantee that the cult of mechanics would not suddenly slip out of his control. One must also consider this: if the emperor were to resurrect and declare Guilliman a traitor to the empire, which side would the cult of mechanics choose? Should we choose Amnesia, the holy god of all machines? Or should we choose the resurrected 13 sons of the empire? The answer is obvious. Perhaps some members of the cult of mechanics would choose him, but they would definitely be a minority. He must have his own research institution and a complete research system to digest the various knowledge in the database. To accomplish all this, the help of these planetary governors is needed. Souls born under the Crimson Light should not have allowed the existence of these families that lord it over ordinary people. But the complexity of this world far exceeds that of his original world. Even if he is a transmigrator, he is also a primarch, and with the help of the domination template, he can gain unimaginable abilities. However, it is impossible to completely control every world. The empire was too vast, and its means of communication and navigation were far too inefficient. There is also a lack of sufficiently powerful artificial intelligence available. The Chaos God can corrupt not only flesh and blood creatures, but also the Internet. This world cannot be managed using the kind of intelligent system found in the world of Super God. Nor should a single intelligent system be allowed to control too many combat units. Blindly pursuing the path of intelligentization could lead to a situation where, if invaded by demons, even intelligently controlled units could be corrupted by flesh and blood, eventually turning on humans. The forces under the command of the Chaos God are numerous, including viruses and demons that can be used for intelligence and networking. Developing large-scale intelligence in this universe, entrusting the entire world to a single intelligence, is tantamount to suicide. These various restrictions mean that every planet colonized by humans has a certain degree of autonomy, making the position of planetary governor indispensable. In addition, another important role is that of the wandering merchant. The history of Ronin merchants is also very ancient, starting from the Great Expedition 10,000 years ago. After the Emperor issued the first Ronin merchant document, this role took the stage and played an extremely important part on the imperial stage. They are responsible for trade between star systems, and even have the right to trade with aliens, possessing unimaginable wealth. Some traveling merchants' families have influence that can spread to dozens or even hundreds of star systems, which shows how terrifying they are. The places the Imperial Navy goes, the places merchants and Ronin go. Where the Imperial Navy wouldn't go, it would be more frequented by wandering merchants and Ronin. Salvage warships, explore places untouched by the light of stars, and search for lost relics and civilizations from humanity's golden age. Away from imperial glory, trade with aliens. This group played a vital role in the empire's economy, providing the empire with massive tax revenues and supporting its vast army and bureaucracy. Without the help of this group, Guilliman would probably have had to raise funds on his own. After all, his ultramarines don't have time to make money. Dealing with the aliens and chaos alone has already exhausted all their resources. Inside the magnificent hall, Ziller, dressed in finery, along with numerous planetary governors and traveling merchants, all expressed their loyalty to Guilliman. Guilliman, seated at the head of the round table, showed no excitement whatsoever from their words. He tapped the table in front of him before slowly speaking. "I need a parliament that will help me implement my policies and carry out my will. I wonder who among you is willing to serve me?" Guilliman looked at the crowd before him, just as he had said. He needs a parliament to help him formulate policies and promote his will and beliefs. This time, when he goes to war and conquers every world, all of them must be transformed according to his will. instead of letting it go unchecked. This move will provoke the hatred of many opposing forces within the Empire. The Terran Council, the cult of mechanics, nobles from various sectors, merchants, and others will all harbor hatred towards him because he has infringed upon their interests. But Guilliman had no choice, in this era when the four gods had been revived and the Emperor remained asleep. It is absolutely impossible to let the planets roam freely as before. In many parts of the world, law and order are in a state of chaos, gangs are rampant, a large number of the lower classes are used as disposable resources, the powerful and wealthy act arrogantly and domineeringly, and they even fail to deliver when it matters most. In some parts of the world, the average lifespan is as low as 30 years. Just think about how incredibly messed up this situation is. There are too many cases like this. Living in such a world, so unfair and cruel, why don't people accept the power of chaos? We've already reached the bottom of the abyss, even if the chaos is terrible, how much worse can it get? One must control and transform every world, establishing a relatively equal system where everyone has the opportunity to advance, in order to ensure one's own peace of mind. Only those worlds that are liberated can continuously provide themselves with talent and soldiers, thereby saving the human empire. Ziller and the others exchanged bewildered glances, such words had crossed a line. Is this Primarch destined to follow in his brother's footsteps and rebel against the Emperor's rule? They didn't know whether the other person was telling the truth or testing their baiting tactics. Guilliman saw their hesitation. This is not an act of betrayal. Though I have only just awakened, I have already seen through the entire empire. Ignorance and stupidity permeate every corner of the empire, its former glory and rationality are gone, leaving it like a zombie. While patching things up may prolong the empire's life, it would only further deviate from my father's dream. Necessary reforms can strengthen our power, and only in this way can we fight against chaos and the rampaging aliens. After speaking, Guilliman looked at the planetary governors and traveling merchants, and asked in a deep voice, "Are you willing to serve me? You can make a decision based on your own conscience, and I will never harm you because of this. But I still have something to tell you. The power of chaos is immense, and on our side, the Empire has been torn apart by the Great Rift. Nearly half of humanity's territory has lost the protection and guidance of the Imperial Starlight, suffering ravages from xenomorphs and demons. You have all witnessed the bloated and corrupt Terran Council, the closed-mindedness and rigidity of the Mechanics. If change is not made, the Emperor's dream will be shattered in our hands, and even humanity will perish because of us. As Regent of the Empire, Lord of Altramar, and Primarch of the Ultramarines, I sincerely hope that you will become my allies." Guilliman's words caused the planetary governors and traveling merchants to exchange bewildered glances. Chapter 13. Guilliman stopped talking and simply sat in his seat, observing them. Since things have been said to this extent, you either agree to join or you can only exclude them from your own plans. This reform is undoubtedly a huge storm for the current empire. It is necessary to select a loyal and obedient person to carry it out, and to ensure as much as possible that his will is not distorted, let alone taken advantage of by chaos. Reforms will inevitably encounter significant resistance, this is undeniable. No one likes the feeling of losing power. Back when Terra was still called Earth, ambitious individuals waged countless wars for a tiny dynasty spanning a few million square kilometers, all in pursuit of the supreme right to look down upon all living beings. Among the stars, there will be even more ambitious individuals. They crave power, the power to easily decide the fate of a planet, a sector. After a moment's thought, Ziller was the first to step forward, bowing slightly. "The Hitler family is willing to serve you, Your Excellency Regent. Please accept my humble loyalty. The Hitler family hereby swears that our loyalty to you will burn as brightly as the sun of Terra." With one taking the lead, the other planetary governors also stepped forward and bowed one after another. "The Valence family is also willing to serve you. The Hitler family is also willing to serve you." They knelt before Guilliman, letting their mechanical prosthetics or flesh and blood limbs kneel on the cold ground, to show their loyalty. Upon witnessing this scene, the traveling merchants exchanged bewildered glances, hesitated for a moment, and then all knelt down. The William Chamber of Commerce will resolutely carry out your will. The Nancy Chamber of Commerce will resolutely carry out your will. Sparsely populated, about half of the people chose to submit and kneel down. The remaining half of the people had shifting expressions, their eyes growing serious. Some even gripped their gun holsters, their gazes sweeping across the hall with grave intent. They were terrified that a group of ultramarines clad in blue power armor would suddenly appear, wielding power axes, and hack them to pieces. This was no joke. Gilliman's words crossed a line.
वीडियोस बनाने हैं, फिल्मोरा है ना।